anything that is not highly compromised and not worth having anyway, ultimately. And so it's really open to any number of tactics. What's important to realize here is it's just that I think we need to take some serious action to just shut things down. You can do that any number of ways. Now, what I'm really not interested in either is a debate about sabotage and property destruction, these kind of tactics, because these are just rearguard tactics. I mean, I would defend these as one of a million things that we ought to do, one of a million tactics that would be justifiable, one of a million ways to free an animal. But what we really need to do is have a social revolution. And this is certainly nowhere near on the horizon.
Absolutely.
But this
and the so-called mainstream media, all they know and talk about is apparently these actions that you were just describing. You know, where people burn down laboratories and all that kind of stuff to make activists look bad, and to say, look, you know, you are the ones that are aggressive, when in fact, you know. People who do that, people like ourselves, you know, activists, I think we are the passionate ones.
Well, that's another example. I mean, we're going to try to play nice to the media and give them nice press packets and behave in front of their cameras. Or we're just going to do our own media. Who cares what the media say? You know, public opinion matters to some extent, and that's why there's a press office for the ALF and ELF. But the most important thing is to have an impact with your actions. I'm really not too sympathetic with these arguments. Oh, you're going to give a bad name to the movement. I think that's ineliminable in some senses. And the person that's sitting on their lazy boy chair drinking a beer, I don't think their opinion matters too much one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of armchair critics anyway.
Yeah, right. So who cares what they think?
Yeah,
it's not like it's going to matter to animals one way or the other. But, you know, we do our own media, we do our own actions, and we just stop talking about things. We're not going to get anywhere.
I mean, speaking of...
about why animals have rights, let's stop theorizing, by the way. Just to finish on this note, as a philosopher, I want to say let's stop theorizing.
But you do, I mean...
we need more action and less... Can I quote Elvis? A little less conversation, a little more action.
Having said all that, I mean, you are often a keynote speaker. I mean, you often you have been all over the world and talked. And you do not often, or not always. I mean, you know, sometimes people say, "Oh, yeah, we always talk to the converted." In your case, that's often not true. You really go where no man has gone before, in a way. So you do have your sort of enemies and critics, obviously. What is it they say that they don't like about you saying negotiation is over? I don't know.
This first person of drill me on this particular point. But, you know, before I answer that, I don't want to make too sharp of a distinction here. I mean, between theorizing and acting, or between talking and doing. You know, to some extent, these are one and the same things. It's just if you only talk or if you only theorize, or it's how you theorize. If you theorize about animal rights in a very abstract, arcane way, you need a PhD to understand. That's not going to do too much good. But then again, Tom Reagan did that in a very difficult book, The Case for Animal Rights, and it helped change history. So I'd have to qualify that too. So nothing's easy, and, you know, I don't want to get locked in any absolute positions. I don't hold absolute positions. But I just think that we can't only be talking. We must, and on the other hand, you can't act without thinking, without reading, without writing. The education as an educator is always very important. People have images of me going out there at night with my mask on. Well, you know, that's not what I do. I'm an educator, I'm a writer, and certainly I'm an activist in various ways.
But I also think, like, you know, because you make your views known publicly and say, look, you know, I don't really care what you say, this is my standpoint. That's just one of those things that can be used, like I said, you know, again, to stigmatize your work and to make you look bad. Having said all this, I mean, you are involved for quite a number of years, and not everybody knows for how long that is. Could you let me know how long are you involved? And the other question that I really have is, like, are there changes for the better? Or were there changes for the better?
Okay, those are good. And we're on a question delay system here. I just want to get back to your last question, and then I'll get to this one about, run me that last question before that you had said earlier about, I remember what it was. Going into, I think it's important when we do speak to people and when we do vegan outreach or when we do education, we definitely got to get out of this preaching to the choir thing. There's way too much of that, and it's a cliche, but if we think about it, it's just about too much of what we do. One of the things I did was go to South Africa and speak to people in South Africa in the townships. I had a lot of black activists there in the audience. Now, that's a tough audience to go down there and speak to veganism about. Here's the white Western man coming down telling you, for the last 400 years what to do, and here he is again. So these are difficult things. I have a friend, Gary Urowski, who's a vegan educator. He'll do anything but talk to the media. He'll do anything but talk to a crowd of people that are his adorers, an animal rights conference. He doesn't go to these things. They're a waste of time. So let's encourage people. So let's do some real vegan outreach. Let's not stand on college campuses and hand out our leaflets. I suppose there's some good value to that too, but let's really try to get out of this white, middle-class, elitist enclave that we're stuck in. Let's really try to take this message to the people, to the poor, to the communities, to people of color, to families. Let's really try to get this out there. Let's get it out in China, for G's sake. China's
that's going to be
into a meat-based consumption economy, and nobody's talking about this. It's all over. It's all over when that happens, right? The Earth cannot afford a United States, let alone a China, shifting to a meat-based diet. So there's a lot of things in this movement that are just not being talked about, and I think we're in a real conceptual and tactical rut.
I mean, I was really hoping, when the United Nations sort of backed activists up and saying that over 50% of the greenhouse gases is ultimately caused by farming, that people would wake up. And now you have obviously these other people, they always are, that's a conspiracy and that's all rubbish and all that kind of stuff. But I want to get back to you going to South Africa, because one of the things, I went to Toronto with Concern, which is an NGO here, years ago to do footage of HIV/AIDS. And last year I saw you can actually sponsor people in Africa, and you can buy them a goat for 36 quid. And I obviously wouldn't do that. So the argument obviously is that people who have nothing to eat and their livelihood is cows and pigs, what have you, they wouldn't listen to you. Were they listening to you when you were down in South Africa, for instance?
Well, I don't know what the extent they listened to me. They were respectful, and some wrote me later and said they appreciate what I had to say. But I think there are some instances when pushing veganism is an elitist thing. When we ask poor people, we might have a critical attitude. They're not buying cruelty-free products. I mean, this is a little bit unreasonable. And if someone is living on a small farm and the only animals they have, the only food that they have is these animals that traditionally this is all they know, that might be slightly problematic. But then again, one of the things, we have to talk about sustainability, raising animals for food around the globe, and I think in any kind of setting, factory farm or family farm, is no longer sustainable. So, the kind of tactics I tried in South Africa, in talking to people who are human rights activists in the townships, and I mean these shanty towns with little 4x4 rooms with steel roofs, the tactics there to talk about is long-term sustainability, the shortage of land and water, the fact that there are meat industries down there lobbying South Africa and Brazil and some of these countries that aren't yet they haven't shifted over to this paradigm. They're lobbying them, trying to get them to do that. It's really important to talk about sustainability issues and rights. See, they don't understand the language of rights all the time. Maybe human rights, but not for animals. You try to speak in the language of the ancient philosophies, the sacredness of life. The kind of philosophies they used to have before Western systems came and corrupted their way of thinking. I hear some of the black champions of human rights, for instance, talk about animals as resources, elephants as resources, and their problem is not with killing elephants. Their problem is that people are killing elephants and taking them out of their communities or out of their country, and that they're not getting the benefit from it. They see elephants as a new school. some